Welcome to LAUTECH Open and Distance Learning Center. I will be taking you through ACT 306 Petroleum Accounting, Study Section 5, Accounts for Mineral Interest, Exploration and Decommissioning. In Nigeria, the right over surface area of land and its subsurface locations are separated. In other words, if a farmer owns the land, he does not own the mineral that lies underneath. Section 1 of the Petroleum Act 1969 vests the entire ownership and control of petroleum resources in all land within Nigeria and its territorial waters and continental shelf in the government. The Minister for Petroleum Resources may, on behalf of the government, grant any of the following. Oil exploration license usually cover a period of a year to explore, that is, discover for petroleum. Number 2, oil prospecting license, which usually cover a period of 3 to 5 years to prospect, search for petroleum. And number 3, oil mining lease, which usually cover a period of 20 to 30 years to win, work, carry away and dispose of petroleum to a licensee or lessee. Learning outcome for study section 5. On completion of this study section, you should be able to account for mineral interest, that is, royalty, working interest, and overriding royalty interest. Number 2, accounting for exploration and production companies. Number 3, accounting for decommissioning. Now, we are looking at gap for acquisition cost of unapproved properties. The provision of SAS 14 include the following. Accounting policy. Look at the classification of the cost. It's also look at the successful effort method and full cost method. Now, accounting policy. All companies engaged in oil and gas exploration, development, and production activities shall state in their financial statement the policy for accounting for costs incurred and the manner of disposing of capitalized costs in respect of such activities. In addition, the policy on accounting for restoration and abandonment costs and the total restoration and abandonment cost should be disclosed in their financial statement, even if already included in cost of sales. Now let's look at the classification of cost. Oil and gas producing activities involve special types of cost which should be classified as follows: mineral rights acquisition cost, exploration and drilling cost, development cost, production cost, support equipment and facility cost, and general cost pending determination. Such costs should be written off when it is determined that the well is dry. Now let's look at the successful effort method. In successful effort method, costs associated with this acquisition of unapproved properties are initially capitalized when incurred. This consists of costs incurred in obtaining a mineral interest in a property, such as signature bonuses, option to lease, broker's fee, legal costs, stamp duties, and other similar costs in acquiring property interest. Unapproved properties should be assessed at least once a year to determine if there is any loss in value, that is impairment. So if there is any impairment, it must be recorded as what? As a loss. Now let's look at the full cost method. Under the full cost method, all costs associated with the acquisition of unapproved properties are capitalized within the appropriate cost center. Now, unapproved properties that are excluded from the amortization base should be periodically assessed for impairment until it can be determined if approved reserves are attributable to them. So if impairment is indicated, the amount of impairment should be included in the amortization base and not charged to profit and loss. Accounting for exploration. We have three ways that we can account for exploration. The first one, we are looking at accounting for drilling and development cost. Then we look at for the preparation of development and that drilling cost. Then we also look at accounting for exploration and drilling cost. Now let's take each one after the other. Accounting for drilling and development cost. Accounting for exploration, drilling and development costs can be quite complex, especially when the lessee or the original working interest owners has assigned fractional interest to other oil companies. So, but for the second one, preparation for development and drilling, we will be looking at in the context of intangible expenditure. So, drilling contractors, charges, site preparation, road pits, bites, reamers, tools, labor, fuel, power and water, drill stem test, cornea analysis, electric survey and logs, geological and engineering, cementation, completion, fracturing, acidizing, perforating, rig, transportation, erection and removal, overhead and other services. So accounting for exploration, drilling and development costs can be quite complex, and as we have mentioned earlier. So if we are looking at the intangible expenditure, we are looking at casing, that is production and surface, turbine, wellhead and subface, pumping unit, tanks, separators, heater, treater. We are looking at the engines and automotive flow line, installation cost of equipment, sundry equipment, then with other different additional information. Now let's look at the accounting for exploration and drilling costs. Example of exploration and drilling costs are cost of topographical, geological and geophysical studies, rights of access to properties to conduct those studies, and salaries and other expenses of geologists, geophysical crew and other conducting these studies. Collectively, these are sometimes referred to as G and G. All of these are how to account for exploration and drying cost. Now we can look at some of these costs, that the cost of carrying and retaining undeveloped properties such as delay, rental, tax on the properties, legal cost for title defense, and the maintenance of land and lease record, like dry hole contribution and bottom hole contribution. All these are the exploration and drilling costs, so should be accountable for. Accounting for decommissioning. The International Financial Reporting Interpretation Committee they look at the changes in existing decomposition, restoration and similar liabilities. The FRS provide that the present value of the cost of dismantling, removing or restoring an oil and gas field as a result of a legal or constructive obligation is recognized as a liability, and the corresponding cost capitalized as part of the related property, plant and equipment. IFRS adoption and exploration and evaluation, that is E&E. E&E costs can be categorized into pre-exploration cost, exploration and evaluation cost, and development cost. So generally all the E&E costs associated with identifying new reserves are capitalized. So E&E expenditure are those costs that are incurred by an oil and gas entity in connection with the exploration for and evaluation of mineral resources before the technical feasibility and the prospect of extracting a commercially viable quantity of oil. So natural gas and similar non-regenerative resources are established. We are looking at the decomposition expenditure in IFRS adoption. Now, decompositioning is the act of dismantling, removal, taking service or disassembly of redundant oil and gas installation, rigs, pipes, etc. Now, IFRS treats decomposition expenditure of oil and gas. Therefore, there is a legal requirement to rehabilitate the change done to the environment. So, under the Nigerian GAAP, we have the cap. We have the rule and regulation or law policy of Federal Republic of Nigeria that provide that all abandonment programs have to be approved or agreed by the head of the Petroleum Inspectorate. There is therefore a legal requirement to rehabilitate the damage done to the environment. So entities are required to make provision for restoration and abandonment costs less estimated salvage value of the assets, equipment based on the best availability estimate by neither of the following. Now, a charge against income on a systematic basis over the full production life of facilities concerned, so that the accumulated provision will cover the cost of restoration or the abandonment, or recognizing the eventual liability at the outset. The corresponding debit should be treated as a capital cost to be depreciated using the unit of production basis. Hybrid agreement. Hybrid agreement that combine elements of different agreements. For example, NNPC worked out an alternative funding agreement with the oil company known as PSC hybrid, NNPC carry agreement due to inability of the Nigerian government to fund the JFA, that is the joint venture account, as a result of drilling revenue. So in this agreement, which is a hybrid of JV and PSC, the oil companies in the JV carry the NNPC share of capital cost, while the NNPC continues to be cash called for operating expenses. We have come to the end of this study section. Thank you for listening. See you in the next class.